Hello and welcome to a nameless live video here in the 42 UEFA Nations League Mania. I actually can't even. It's upon us. The draw was made today in Switzerland, and Ireland have been drawn alongside our old and recent foes, Wales, and who are the other ones? Denmark. Yeah, how could I forget? I'm Gavan Casey, and joining me here is Ben Blake of the 42. Ben, how are things?
Good, yeah. The suspense has been killing me all morning, waiting to find out who we get in the newly found Nations League. Yeah,
it's been a tense day here at 42 Towers. A lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of suspense. Ben, how excited are you by this concept, by this tournament? I mean, should we take it seriously? Do you care? We should care, but I'm finding it difficult, I have to say.
I know you're struggling to care, but with so few big opportunities for Ireland to play on the big stage in 2018, I think it's the only thing we can really look forward to. No major tournament this summer. We've got a couple of friendlies coming up in the next few months, maybe blood through young players and through in that, but other than that we don't really have anything to excite us. So yeah, I'm clutching at straws, and I'm excited for the Nations League.
Such a bleak picture you painted there. I mean, I suppose a lot of it is going to come down to literally the first games, and it's difficult to kind of ascertain in advance of the tournament how all of the countries are going to treat it. Obviously it's an opportunity for a lot of the smaller nations in your leagues C and D to actually reach the Euros, and it is an expanded tournament this time, of course, with 24 teams. For the likes of Ireland, look, it's, as you mentioned, it's kind of another opportunity to get there if we fail in qualifying, which is brilliant. But I don't know. What do you make of? I mean, so they've brought it in largely to replace friendlies, which have become kind of redundant, a bit problematic. But given what I suppose the grasp that club football has on the global sport now, the money, social media, all sorts of things, and the fact that we've seen for even since way beyond social media, for the last 20, 30 years, for friendly games, club players will pull out with knocks and niggles, and you'd question as to whether they're really hurt or just protecting themselves. What about the demands that this is going to place now on the modern player, where already fixture lists are so congested, particularly in England? I know you've got a second competitive strain of games at international level. What do you make of that, from the player's perspective?
Well, like you said, the top nations with the top players who are playing in the best clubs around Europe may not take it as seriously as the ones kind of further down, given the fact that they are probably likely to qualify anyway through the qualifiers. It's a second chance. So for ourselves, for the countries that are in around the kind of position that they may not qualify, it's
the shit teams.
Yeah, exactly, to be polite about it.
Yeah, it is definitely a second chance. But we want to hear from you guys at home. Let us know your thoughts on the UEFA Nations League. Let us know how excited you are. I'm sure you're shaking there at home. Other topics as well. What do you make of Martin O'Neill's contract extension? Was it the right decision for you? Would you rather go with another candidate, I suppose? I'm not sure if there were many, but whatever you think, let us know. We will get to your comments here. Ben, I suppose if you look at the fixture list now for Ireland, the fixture list of actually, just in case people haven't seen it yet, you might give us the update there as to where we're playing and when.
Yeah, so that's just come out in the last few minutes, and we're kicking off on September the 6th, back in Cardiff away to Wales, before a double header at home with Denmark on October 13th and Wales on October 16th, and we'll finish off in Copenhagen on November 19th.
What do you make of the draw for Ireland? I think from what I gathered earlier, you weren't too impressed, purely on the basis that we've just played those teams so recently, and part of the reason for this tournament was so that you get the opportunity to play other teams competitively that you might not play ever.
Yeah, the whole familiarity of it has not really done it for me. I was kind of hoping we might get Northern Ireland. Would have been a tasty two-legged affair against them. Even someone like Slovakia maybe, but the fact that we're playing the two nations who we've played most recently, it's hard to get up for. And if you look at the Wales game, they may owe us one, I suppose, considering we went over to Cardiff and nicked a 1-0. If you wanted to reverse that the other way, I suppose, and Martin O'Neill has suggested that revenge will be on the cards for Denmark, but whether we can actually go and do that is another thing.
Can you see Neil Taylor making it out of the Aviva with both of his legs?
Of course I can, yeah.
We're not like that, Ben.
No, not at all.
I mean, there are a couple of interesting narratives, for want of a better word, but Ryan Giggs versus Roy Keane, if Keane is still there at that point, And then, as you mentioned, the revenge thing with both Denmark and ourselves, and then Wales wanting revenge against Ireland. I can understand how people would be a little bit frustrated, given we have played these teams already very recently, particularly getting absolutely spanked by Denmark. But I also think that if you look at the history of Irish football, like our famous victories, our kind of famous defeats linger for as long as our famous victories. Like, they're the things we point back to. Like, if you know, Macedonia, games like this where this sort of ignominy of an embarrassing defeat just lasts a long time. And it's Cyprus. I mean, San Marino was a victory, but it was pathetic, and we mention it very regularly. At least with this one, it's like, perhaps, now it depends on what happens in the two games, of course, but if you can kind of do yourself justice against Denmark, you know, 2 years on, not even, from that 5-1 defeat, maybe it puts it to bed a little bit under the same manager with roughly the same group of players. Otherwise, I fear you get to a playoff and, you know, all the talk of Denmark comes back again, and like, maybe it's an opportunity to just brush the, I don't know, acrimonies into the last campaign under the carpet and move on. Yeah,
that's a good point. And surely Martin O'Neill couldn't be quite as naive as to go into the game as he did the second leg, playing in the diamond, giving Christian Eriksen so much room and space to go and score a hat-trick like he did. In the first leg we were far more solid. We held them. I know we were kind of trying our luck at times, but surely at this point now he'll have a game plan to go out and not get tonked.
Yeah, do you have, like, I mean, you're right, I suppose we did afford Eriksen too much space in that game. Like, he made the point in an interview he just did with Tony O'Donoghue from RTE that obviously Ireland were kind of forced to move the ball around, actually go looking for a goal, particularly in the second half of that game in Dublin in the second leg, and he sort of blamed, I guess, Ireland's kind of expansive gung-ho approach for Ireland shipping 5 goals. Like, it's funny because I think he has a point, actually. Like, I mean, that you could plainly see that Ireland were a little bit more exposed as they chased goals, and yet the public perception of that result will always just be a 5-1 hammering, and I don't think we necessarily are going to get into the nitty-gritty of it tactically every time when we're thinking of the defeat. We just think that campaign ended in absolute and utter disaster, and so here we are following 10 days of kind of uncertainty regarding O'Neill's future. The apathy towards him is glaring. Maybe an apathy slightly towards the team, although it's probably a little bit unfair on them, given they have obviously never stopped trying in green. But it's difficult to know now. Like, for fans at home, and again, we'd love to hear from you guys what you think. But like, the UEFA Nations League, I don't think any country in the world is particularly excited by it. And for us at this juncture, as an Irish football fan, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it all. Like, you know, it's like, yeah, it's an opportunity, a second opportunity for us to get to the Euros, but I just don't know how excited anybody is about this Irish team at the moment, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily going to change under O'Neill. He might blood some young players in Turkey in a friendly, sure, but are they going to be starting competitive games? Maybe not. Maybe the UEFA Nations League will present him with the opportunity to actually play them in a competitive game. I
think that's very much the case. Particularly in the last couple of months when Martin O'Neill looked like he may go, it did feel like a natural kind of point for his term to end, for someone new to come in. It would have brought a bit of excitement had a new man come in, and it's a fresh start, and like you said, young players coming through. Now with O'Neill still here, and after the whole Stoke City fiasco, I think there isn't not a great feeling towards him at the moment. So even if we do get a couple of bad results, it'll easily turn, and the atmosphere around the whole team will be extremely negative. Just on the interview that you mentioned there with Tony O'Donoghue as well, O'Neill again was particularly petty and unprofessional, I think, in my opinion, the way he kind of conducted himself when Tony O'Donoghue was asking fairly routine questions.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, I'm watching it and I'm half seething, to be honest, because it just seems so pointless. Like, somebody made the point to us earlier that at a time when his stock in the eyes of Irish fans is so low, like, how about a little bit of PR? You know, like, endear yourselves slightly to the fans that are watching. Particularly, I think this is going to be, like, certainly part of that interview will be on RT News. It's on RT's Twitter account if you want to watch it at home. It's kind of 4 minutes of, you know, like, bile, salt, as the young people would say, and like, needless. As you mentioned, like very standard questions. O'Neill starts bringing into it like, well, actually, if you look at my record at clubs and the perceptions that clubs would have of his career, how qualifying for the Euros through the playoffs the last time and reaching the playoffs when we were fourth seed in the most recent campaign is this magnificent achievement. And don't get me wrong, it is an achievement, but I also think like that is the least we should expect, because the problem is you can look at that record and say that's actually a solid returns for any Irish manager in, well, ever, and that's fair enough, but like the converse is like years and years of underachievement and just things going drastically wrong, like it's if you're holding yourself to the kind of standard of the failed campaigns, then you can easily say, well, look at me, I'm one of the greatest managers we've ever had. Fair enough, but the fans expect that of every single manager to say like, well, look what I've done. I think everyone is kind of like, well, yeah, that's what you were supposed to do. It doesn't make you some sort of a saint, and it doesn't make you immune to criticism whatsoever, particularly given the style of football we've been playing and how that bit us in the ass basically in that playoff against Denmark. But like the interview that you mentioned there, why not just be nice, be sound, do your job, be professional, speak to a journalist the way you would speak to any random person? For
a man that's been so long in the game, you think at this point he wouldn't take things so personally. Like any sort of criticism, he kind of thinks it's a slate on him, on his playing career, on his managerial career. He's always a couple of minutes away from basically getting his 2 European Cup medals and sticking them on the table and saying, show me yours, as he did with Patrick Vieira and Fabio Cannavaro in the past.
Yeah, Cannavaro, just the Ballon d'Or for him. I mean, he was a real underachiever. Declan O'Sullivan on Facebook says, I think that campaign was lost when we didn't win our first game. So like the World Cup qualifiers. And I completely agree with Declan. I was furious when we drew with Serbia, given they were a team in complete disarray at that time. There was, 12,000 people in the stadium in Belgrade, something like that. I think at that time there were more people watching the Belgrade basketball team than there were the Serbian national team. They were there for the taking, and yet we come away with a 2-2 draw saying, well, that's a great away draw because the Serbs are technically better than us. They're going to Eastern Europe, coming away with a point. But, it's easy to say that if you're to view it on paper or tradition or whatever, but given the sort of pattern of that game and what was going on in Serbia, I thought it was an appalling result. And yes, it did bite us on the ass, Declan, towards the end. Mick on Twitter says, not sure I'm looking forward to playing Denmark again after getting such a bruising recently. Well, the good news, Mick, is that we don't play them until October, so hopefully the bruises will have healed by then. I don't know, what are you thinking, I suppose, for the upcoming friendlies? Like, obviously we need to shuffle things around a little bit. We need to refresh the squad if it's possible. Are there names that you'd be looking at that you'd like to see included and actually get a run out that you think O'Neill could embed into his squad for both the upcoming qualifiers and the UEFA Nations League? Yeah,
I think first of all there's still major question marks over which of the more senior and experienced players are staying on and which are leaving. I suppose we haven't heard word at the moment, which means no one's retired, so I suppose you could take it as a given that they'll all be there. But
John Walters is probably the biggest question mark at the moment.
John Walters, John O'Shea, Wes Hoolahan is 35 as well, although he's come to international football late on, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just wanted to hang around as long as possible. But there's a few players there. In terms of who could come in, we're not blessed with a huge amount of talent that's outside the squad.
You're going to put your hand up.
Too old at this stage, unfortunately. But I know the big name probably on everyone's mind this season is Declan Rice. To have a teenager playing in the Premier League and kind of acquitting himself so well, he's a raw talent, but he's definitely one that we need to kind of get involved with the squad as soon as possible, if not get capped, so I'd bring him in for Turkey. I know Michael Obafemi made his Premier League debut for Southampton last weekend, but I think probably that's some way down the line, and we don't even know. He's an under-19 Ireland international, but he could yet decide to declare for Nigeria or England, so that seems a little bit up in the air. Other than that, Matt Doherty has been around the squads without being capped yet. He's been at Wolves for a number of years now and playing really well. And
playing Premier League next year.
Yeah, well they're flying. They're top of the league and they look they look like they're on the way to back to the top flight. So I think he'd definitely be a worthy option to get in. And then further down, maybe the likes of kind of Preston lads like Alan Brown or Greg Cunningham's back fit, people like that, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you reckon that, I don't know, for this campaign, and they're kind of two campaigns in a way, but like, are we going to see anything different from Ireland, or is it just going to be the same Ireland roughly? I mean, stylistically now that we've seen. Oh, I don't like that face, Ben. I know what the answer is going to be, but it's just that I feel as though like there'll be an inertia to it, and we'll arrive at a similar juncture to where we were towards the end of that last World Cup qualifying campaign, where everybody's like, well, we know what's going to happen here. We're actually not good enough to play football, and therefore eventually we're going to be found out. Like, the problem with it is, and you actually alluded to it earlier when you said it seemed like the natural sort of get-off point for O'Neill, having been beaten in the playoffs, to just step aside and maybe it was time for a change. And we've seen so often, like when you think of Mick McCarthy after the 2002 World Cup, there was actually not necessarily any bad feelings towards him even after the whole Saipan thing, because we'd performed capably in the World Cup, and yet we get hammered in Moscow, we lose at home to Switzerland, and the fans are singing "There's only one Kino" after two qualifiers, and we were gone, and that was the Euros in Portugal over with. So like, I'm very fearful that we could be arriving at a similar juncture here, yet the odds are stacked in our favour because it's a bigger tournament and there are 2 ways in now. So geez, I don't know what to make of it all, Ben, to be honest.
To answer your first question, I don't.
There was a lot of questions in there, and I'm sorry. It was more of a rant.
Yeah, I got that. I don't think there's going to be huge change. O'Neill isn't going to rip up the playbook and kind of start again, you know. Personally, I wouldn't mind kind of seeing maybe us try a 3-5-2 in the friendlies and kind of see how that works.
You've lost your mind,
wing backs. A big, huge kind of bonus for us as well is the fact that Seamus Coleman was back out on a pitch and playing football for the first time since he broke that double leg break against Wales. Obviously he was only an Everton under 23 game, but he's kind of on the road to recovery, to full fitness at this stage, on the latter stages of the road, and hopefully he'll be back in the coming months and maybe get to run in the friendlies. On the flip side of that, I suppose James McCarthy, who's had rotten luck over a number of years now, is just starting his recovery from a similar injury.
Yeah, it was a shame, and I know the two of them are very good friends, so obviously Seamus Coleman will be there for James and with them every step of the way, I'm sure. Dave O'Hanlon has a question here. He says, so these are like friendly games then or something? So obviously missed the start of the video. Where were you, Dave? Really? But just to fill Dave in, no, they're not friendlies. I mean, they're in lieu of friendlies, I guess, in a way, but they are competitive fixtures. It is a route to the Euros if Ireland should require it, which more than likely we will, I suppose. But just to give Dave a quick rundown again of the not the whole format of the tournament, but how we can make it in through the UEFA Nations League as opposed to qualifying. We need to top our group, which is alongside Wales and Denmark. If we do that, we qualify.
We go into a semi-final with the other with the other League B winners.
Yes, sorry.
And the winner of that gets a place.
Bs.
Yeah.
Stay with us now, Dave. Four League Bs. If we top our League B, we go into a playoff system, semi-final kind of a system with the three other League B winners.
You're losing it now.
And the winner of that overall League B reaches the Euros. So, you know, it's not to be sniffed at. Yeah,
there's a lengthy explainer on the 42 there that we put up on Monday if people are interested in the finer details.
Yeah, I didn't read it carefully enough by all accounts. Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure. Well, actually, it's been largely terrible. I'm more pessimistic now than I've ever been, I think, about Irish football, but I enjoyed spending time with you anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, it won't be for another while anyway. There's no games to talk about in terms of international, so count yourself lucky.
Thanks be to God for that. Cheers for tuning in. Cheers for your comments. We'll speak to you on Friday for close calls, but until then, take care.